Dun, 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 dun.
Those of you who follow this channel know that sometimes when it comes to different projects, if it's made available, I like to get a deeper window into creative ventures in the entertainment space, specifically within cinema and television, rather than just look at the product itself. I like to see the work that went in, to not only gauge, the creative effort of a project, but to understand the artist's vision. I like to get a full scope when I can. Such is needed for the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, in my opinion. I think a lot of us are asking questions in particular to this show. Now, I've covered it extensively on this channel in regard to the trailers. I'm probably going to watch the first episode, maybe two. Maybe I'll end up the whole way through. I don't know. But a lot has been said about this program. Now, I've stated previously as well, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. Even though I have not yet read the books, I'm working on that. I love the films. I've even seen the extended editions of, not The Hobbit, I've seen it just of The Lord of the Rings, but the extended editions were a lot of fun. I've even played some of the video games, and I've loved those. I love the world of Lord of the Rings, and the mythology that Tolkien envisioned is incredibly dynamic, and it's a fantasy epic that is not only, historically relevant, or reverent, but it's such an engrossing world and a tale that you don't easily forget. For me, it's like it's sort of where maybe I don't have the most extensive knowledge on source material. It's sort of the reverence I have for, let's say, an adjacent series. For me, the Chronicles of Narnia was just such a sweeping epic as well. And then the media adaptations, I thought, were the first three films, the main ones, were a really good portrayal. I mean, well, I'm thinking about it actually with the Chronicles of Narnia and the film line. As I've stated, I made no secret of this, and we'll get to it more in a second, but with Amazon, there's more of a criticism in the way of how they've treated it, the manifestation of The Lord of the Rings, specifically from a revision side. Chronicles of Narnia did a bit of that with the last film, even though I thought the revisions, they worked for me, because they matched the story. I'm thinking specifically of The Voyage of Dawn Treader. I love that film. I've never really given that much thought in comparison to the two projects. But yeah, that project did revise at least some of the elements, some of the order of events. It enlarged the conflict to certain characters and environments in the story. I'm not trying to spoil anything and not read the Chronicles of Narnia or even watch the movie. That movie's my favorite. It's such a good film. Even again amid the revisions, I thought the revisions worked because they matched the story. And again, films don't often do a perfect translation. I mean, sometimes they do, but you sometimes see films that variate or lessen or embolden certain elements to best fit with a dramatized portrayal. But that film really worked for me. I thought the revisions did, at least in some capacities, they didn't add unnecessary baggage in, but they elevated the story and they kept the mythology true to the way C.S. Lewis envisioned it. That's not the case with this show, right? Even with the movies, from my understanding, tried to preserve the world of Tolkien to the best of their ability, or the best Peter Jackson could manage. This Amazon show has several ghosts looming over it. In particular, what I thought have been very scenic trailers, beautiful trailers, in fact, in line with the movie, but not in substance. Still, while I felt, that it's a very opulent show, the storyline, the characters, the overall fantasy side to it feels not only generic, but hollow. Like something's missing in substance. It doesn't feel like Lord of the Rings to me, especially in that last trailer. It feels void of something. And I think a lot of it has to be credited to the deviation from Tolkien, as we know, without even having watched the show. And many other YouTubers have covered this much more extensively than me. I've tried to best, lay out some of the details in my previous videos. I'm trying to keep this one simplified, given I've gone over it so many times. But there's a lot of free reign that Amazon is utilizing with this show that is putting a ghost over the Rings of Power, which is self-inflicted and one that shouldn't be ignored. In particular, that is deviating substantially in many regards from what Tolkien has expressed. And it doesn't help, as I've also stated, and I've certainly not done anything in the way of holding this back, this is debuting on the anniversary of Tolkien's passing. That does speak volumes, especially if your show is not in sound line with what Tolkien envisioned. And it's going to loom over the show for the remainder of its, 5-season run. But at this point, the show is debuting in a couple days. I've certainly said my piece about it. A lot of Lord of the Rings fans have spoken very boldly about where this show has gone. It's also interesting, again, to see in the realm of franchise adaptations that have decided to deviate from fan interest or fan respect. seeing the level of animus thrown Amazon's way in understandable criticism of the fact that they're deviating, it's interesting to compare it to other franchises that have faced a similar dilemma. I think Lord of the Rings perhaps is one of the most potent franchises we've seen in response. But even then, we haven't had the series debut yet. I'm covering this all in anticipation. When the series lands, it's going to be another story, because then we can best judge the creative product as a whole, and not just on glimpses. It's going to be fascinating to see the response to the show, and I would like to get a better envisionment from the creators into what they were thinking with it. That's what the intent of this featurette, I hope, is. I don't know. It's a 2-minute featurette, so maybe it'll dig down deeper, but this is the experience I like to have with featurettes, in learning more. Let's take a look at this and see what they have to say. It's the Stories from a Legendarium featurette. Well, from my understanding, it's actually Stories from the Appendices. Anyway, I think that's the accurate title of what we were going for here. Without further ado, here we go.
Second Age is the great unfilmed story in Tolkien's entire legendarium, with the forging of the rings and the last alliance.
Unfilmed till now.
And we felt that that was the story that deserved to be told.
Galadriel has been...
But how did you tell it?
...for over 1,000 years, scouring Middle-earth, searching for this elusive, undiscovered, very real evil. Ultimately, she knows this danger exists. This evil has to be stopped.
From the beginning, we knew she couldn't do this alone. Every good quest needs a fellowship.
I wouldn't have run with that line. There we go again. Based on the works by J.R.R. Tolkien. Yeah, how much? Just in name only? You can say that as much as you want. It doesn't mean the truth is any less
time where the
dulled.
Characters and species that we know and love become who we know them to be.
Well, you don't convince me of that based on the casting choices. Maybe they'll do a good job, but I just don't see Elrond or Galadriel here.
What Tolkien represents, it's really important that we keep that legacy alive.
In this show, something can happen in a split second that changes everything.
Eat those words, Amazon.
And shocking.
They are trying so hard to bring the fans back in. As if we didn't know any better, right? Everything has been already said. I mean, at this point, again, like I said, the fans have been more than, open about the criticism and the very valid points. So you can be like, oh, it's based on the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. We wanted to preserve his legacy. Yeah, he did a poor job of that from what I've heard. So, I don't know. You've got how many more seasons coming up? If you don't succeed the first time, try again. But maybe at this point it's better to just call it a one and done and let another studio maybe do it better. I don't know. Just an idea. It's probably not going to happen. I mean, they've got 5 seasons of this thing, so whole lot of glamour for a show that, again, feels in many respects devoid. Still does. I mean, I think the San Diego Comic-Con trailer was the strongest, and that's the footage that they used here. I think. Or maybe it was from the first trailer, a teaser. I don't remember exactly. But, I don't know. It's sad. I wish that I could have better things to say about Lord of the Rings. As I said, I'm a big fan. I'm sure many of the fans wish they could say the same. But I look at this and I'm like, you're adding on a whole lot of fluff to something that still on its foundation has problems. I would not have run with a line, by the way. I mean, it's bad enough that they're saying, like, based on the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. We know clearly there's a lot of liberties taken. But then to say, like, every quest needs a good fellowship, like, I'm maybe paraphrasing that line a bit, but I would not have run with that. It's just, number one, it sounds awfully cliche and dull. Again, just sounds like you're trying to bank off Tolkien. And for a series that has no Tolkien in it, I believe, other than a semblance of the world. That wasn't even his, that was Peter Jackson's. It's just lacking to me. I mean, even again, Amazon is doing all they can at this point to shovel out marketing. You can't clean this mess up at this point. It's too late. And there's just so many points to the show that it's sad. I don't want to be so critical on it, but then again, I can't shake the fact, as opulent as it is, as much money as you put into the visuals of the show, it lacks Tolkien in substance. And the fact that this is coming out again on the anniversary of his death, I can't say it enough. It's a very, very, very bad look. I mean, I've also stated this previously as well. No, actually, have I? No, I've been thinking it. I just keep forgetting to mention it. But the Chronicles of Narnia analogy, I bring that up. I mean, if the Rings of Power should serve as anything, it should be a warning. As we've had many trials of this before in regard to big franchises, you've had many films that have tried to tailor their own operation on things, and it hasn't worked. I mean, the fans have spoken out. I mean, we've seen this in like big sci-fi franchises as well. I think of, Marvel, Star Wars, a couple of the other ones. People have spoken out against unnecessary changes that damage the existence of the lore as fans have come to love it, or as the original creators envisioned it. If anything, again, like I said, the Rings of Power should serve as a warning to other studios looking to bark on this territory. Netflix as well. They own the rights to Narnia, which is why I'm saying this. Your Lord of the Rings, for those of you, again, who have read the books and you're more knowledgeable on the lore, this has been such a vital piece of your life, again, from Tolkien's narrative standpoint, versus me, who just came into the adaptations, but as someone who respects the value in maintaining his vision. Your Lord of the Rings is my Chronicles of Narnia. If Netflix messes that up, and I think there's a good chance, again, if you're seeing what they do on Amazon, I mean, what is Netflix going to do? And that's a very, that's a fantasy epic. That's also got religious undertones that are a little more apparent than Lord of the Rings, I'd say, at the very least. I mean, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is a particular example of this. It's a flat-out allegory to the crucifixion and resurrection story in biblical theology. I mean, I would hope they wouldn't mess that up, but if Amazon's going to, mess up Lord of the Rings, take note, Netflix. But that's a story for another day if that ever happens. I mean, they own the rights, we'll see. But for Lord of the Rings, this is, I mean, if that happens to Narnia, that's a second battle. That'll more so be mine. But Lord of the Rings, I wish I had better things to say about this show. Again, the idea of a Lord of the Rings streaming series, I'd be all behind. Just maybe not this version. Because even, again, I've praised the visuals. I'm just kind of like, it's an unnecessary temptation, and your story has a bad foundation to begin with. It lacks Tolkien. And everybody should speak to that. Everybody has at this point. I think most of the attention is fixated on that point, deservedly. I mean, it seems, in many ways, Amazon messed this one up. What are your guys' thoughts, though, with Lord of the Rings? Or the Rings of Power? I don't think that featurette really helped in any way. It's kind of a bit cringy, in my honest opinion. That fellowship line, again, does not work for me. Maybe you have a different take than I do, though. Maybe you're like, don't be so hard on it. I'm just like, again, the concerns here with the show and what we know about it now are worth highlighting. But yeah, it might be a very scenic show, and you might be enticed by the visual imagery, or you might have some aspects of the stories, maybe you've seen some of the cast members before in other projects that, bring you in. I'd love to hear your angle down below, whatever standpoint you come from. I just look at this and I'm like, lacks in Tolkien. Don't be surprised when this is the next, as it's become, the next pop culture battle in regard to maintaining authenticity of vision. We've seen this in other franchises. I think Lord of the Rings has proven to be one of the most potent. And we'll see what happens when the series drops. It should be fun. Should be an adventurous ride, to say the least. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.